All right, so let's dive right in.
Okay.
I just want to start by saying, because I'm a fan of your work, but I'm also a friend of yours in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very few people in this world that you meet when you know precisely that they are doing the exact thing they were born to do.
Wow.
And you are one of those few people, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Live, breathe, eat, sleep this. Like this is what you were meant to do, and it's so inspiring to be around somebody like that.
Thank you.
And I think for your fans, it definitely seems as though you're living the dream, and I happen to know she really is. But I want to go way back to the very, very beginning.
Damn.
To Southside Chicago.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
the glow up. And
Yeah.
I want to know, what was that first aha moment when you knew, like, hold on, like this big dream I have is actually, it's attainable for someone like me? Like, when did that click for you?
I don't know if you ever really think the dream is attainable. I never really necessarily thought that. I do remember having a moment when Halle Berry won the Oscar. I remember watching that and crying. I was crying because I knew how significant that moment was. And because I was in Chicago, it was like 11:30 p.m. It was super late. My mom had already gone to sleep. So I was in my room watching that by myself, emotional as hell. And then it's not lost on me that I fast forward and I have a first moment at the Emmys for the Thanksgiving episode. And I'm really grateful for that, but I can see the direct line from me being in my room, watching her and thinking like, damn, she did it. Finally, somebody did it. But she also still stands alone. So, and I was just joined by Quinta Brunson in my category. Shout out to Quinta. And Quinta, and I'm grateful for the fact that Quinta and I have a relationship. Halle and I have a relationship. Cheryl Lee Ralph joins Jack A. Harry in that category. So Quinta and I can jokingly text each other, and then there were two. So, and we also had a beautiful exchange of, so now we can hold the door open together.
Yes.
So, I think that to me is like, though they may seem like superficial moments or Emmys, or maybe they don't. I think it is a big deal for us when one of us wins these cool awards because we often are so left out. So when somebody breaks through, you go, because also too, if you haven't seen the Sydney documentary on Apple, please watch it. Directed by Reginald Hudlin, produced by Oprah Winfrey. It's about the great Sidney Poitier. But Oprah Winfrey talks about being a young child seeing Sidney Poitier win an Academy Award and goes, if he can do that, what can I do? So I just think to me, I'm so excited to meet somebody who can say, oh, I saw you and knew that maybe the world was bigger than my own backyard.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
What I love about you is that you always give credit to the people who came before you. You're so clear that your work exists within a historical context, that you're constantly giving, paying respect. And you see that in your work as well. And you also see it in your production company. Even the name, Hillman Grad. Y'all, if you don't know, if there's people here that are too young to know where Hillman Grad comes from.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's not okay. It is not okay. But I want to talk about the work that you're doing behind the camera with your full service production and media company.
Yes, come on, Hillman Grad Productions.
Hillman Grad Productions. Anybody that knows you knows that Hillman Grad, the title, is inspired by A Different World, which is the show that inspired you to become a television writer.
Correct.
But what even I didn't know until I read her investment deck is that the mission behind Hillman Grad is also inspired by what HBCUs are on this, in this country to do, which is to identify and develop the next generation of culture-defining talent.
Yeah.
From writers to directors to
Actors,
authors to
yeah.
actors.
Yeah.
That is where you derive so much pride and joy within your work. And I don't think the people hear enough about that part of your mission. So I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Well, I mean, Hillman Grad, we now have a Hillman Grad Mentorship Lab, which we're in our second year of doing. There's a showcase happening this month in Los Angeles for the actors, the writers, and the executives as well. For me, I was very much had the blessing of being able to work under people who were doing the thing that I wanted to do. I got to be an assistant for Mara Brock-Akil, then for Gina Prince-Bythewood, and then for Ava DuVernay. So it was in that order.
No big deal. Just
in
normal
that order.
first jobs.
I was like, I was
Normal
really good
bosses.
at being an assistant. So they were like, yeah, get Lena, she'll do whatever she's got it. So that was great, but I know that privilege I had to be able to watch them up close and take notes. And so what I wanted to do was to provide something similar, but also because it's virtual, you don't have to move to LA, you can be where you're at. And if you choose to move to LA, that's cool, or to New York, or Atlanta, which is also a booming, to me, is like just as Hollywood as Los Angeles. I think it's important for people to have that knowledge because getting in is only half the battle. Staying there is really the rest of the way. And so what I try to do with the mentorship is to continue to hold a hand once you're in, once you've been staffed, once you've sold the show, once you've worked the first gig, because there's this misconception that once you get the job, great, now we can celebrate. But once celebration is over and the job is getting on your nerves, and you feel like it isn't everything it was cracked up to be, or what happens when you go from chasing the dream to trying to exist in it and having to redefine your narrative, because if you're so used to running after something, you sometimes don't know what to do once you catch it.
Woo, that's a word, y'all.
So, and then once you catch it, it's about how do you hold on to it? And then how do you hold on to it and not want someone else to come in because they may come and take it? And so that's also sort of a part of it too, where it's like talking to everybody in the community saying that win for that person is a win for us all. And if you feel unseen because somebody else is winning, it's like, well, then what can we do to see you? So that you don't feel weird about celebrating someone else. Because I also think that's important. And we really try to teach that in the mentorship lab, that it is community that's going to keep you. The craft will feed you, but the community is what keeps you. So
Did
make
you
sure
guys
you
hear
give
that?
the community.
Wait, one more time for the people in the back, Lena, please, one more time.
You must invest into the craft. That's all I have. People can be mad at me, happy with me, like a creative choice or not, but the craft is the commitment. I'm committed to the craft, to be great at it, to be stronger at it, to continue to work at it. It is the community that keeps me lifted. It's real. Like that is, and I think you gotta, because me and my friends talk about like, do you want company or do you want community? It's two very different things. And I think sometimes it's always good to know what you're surrounded by.
How do you define the difference between a company and a community?
Community is a give and take.
Yes.
Company, you feel drained when they leave. Community, you feel full once they're gone.
Yes. So for creatives in this community who want to be a part of this Hillman grad community and need the support that you're talking about, and they want to shoot their shot, what do you want them to know?
I think it's give and take as well. I think if someone thinks you can come up to a person who has gotten to a place and think they can give you something, you've already lost. It's about like, what are you willing to give? Because oftentimes, like, if I'm working with somebody, I want to know, what is the work ethic? If I give you something, are you going to get it back to me? Like if I say, hey, take a look at this, let me know what you think. If 2 months go by and I go, did you ever watch that thing? Nah, I didn't get around to it. Okay, that's cool. But if you go, I did, here's the thought, da-da-da-da-da-da. So, okay, all right. The action tells me more than, you know what I mean? It's like, so again, that to me is, because even with people in the mentorship lab, it's a give and take. I'm gonna come sit with them, we're gonna talk, I'm gonna answer questions, but I wanna make sure they also doing the thing they said they were gonna do and committed, because I couldn't ask like Mara, just make this happen for me. Gina, just make this happen for me. Ava, you know, it was more like, okay, Lena, here's some tools, and you use them as you decide.
Yeah. For people who don't know, how did you get that first job? Because all of the bosses you name are legendary. That's not normal that all three of those women, black women creators who are trailblazers, were all your first bosses. So how did you get that first big break as an assistant?
Well, it's interesting. I think it was a combination of things. I was obsessed with girlfriends, like most.
Who
I don't know
wasn't?
if you like
I mean, really?
a black person who identifies. I just was, and so I just really watched every episode, had the DVDs and stuff. So so that was me doing the thing that I love, but in a way preparing for a job I never even knew was going to present itself.
Yes.
That makes sense. So I'm like watching it, knowing it, And then I was interning at this television literary agency because I was being very specific. I was like, I want to work in TV, so I'm gonna go intern during the day for free at this TV place. Maybe if they like me enough, they'll get me a gig working for one of their clients. That was my thought process. But I had to work at night because that job paid me in lunch. So I was like working at night, transcribing like tapes for the real world and going to intern there every day, just trying to really show up. And then they were like, all right, one of our clients lost their assistant and they need somebody new. I was like, oh, great. What's the show they on? Girlfriends. And I was like, lit, great. Let me go in there. And so they were like, great. So, but at the time, the people I was interviewing for was Mark Brown, Dee LaDuke, who were a writing team, who were showrunning, and Regina Hicks, who was showrunner. So it wasn't even like Mara Brock had killed directly. These were people running Girlfriends that needed a new assistant. So like, go in and interview. So I go in and I interview, and they ask me about the show. They're like, what did you think of last season? I was like, I thought it was really great. You lost one of your 4 leading ladies, and you bounced back really well with Keisha Sharp. I was like, she's fitting in so well with them. The chemistry is great, and y'all could have dropped the ball, but instead you really picked it up, and you had a wonderful season. I really enjoyed the season. And they were like, okay, do you like dogs? And I was like, sure. Do you like kids? Like, yeah, sure. They were like, because in that moment, they were like, one had dogs, the other had kids, so they knew I was going to go watch their dogs and like watch their kids. So at that point, they were like, this girl, but they appreciated how I was able to talk about the show in a way that wasn't just like, yeah, I kind of watch it, or yeah, it's cool. They could tell I was passionate about it, and then I got that gig, and then Mara saw me always ripping and running, and one day I did hear her. She didn't know I was still in earshot. With my boss asked me to get something, and my instinct was just to run. They were like, do you gotta get something? I was like, oh yeah. And I just like ran, and Mara was like, and I could hear before I left, she was like, where'd you find her? And they were like, yeah, I don't know, it was a literary agency, she came. And then when Gina Bythewood needed an assistant for The Secret Life of Bees, she asked Mara, I need an assistant with some pep in their step. She's like, oh, you gotta get Lena. And I went to her house, we met, and she was like, Mara's my sister, so she said, you cool, great. I just brought you here to make sure you weren't crazy. You got the job, be here on Monday, and don't be late. And that was the beginning of a really great journey. And then one day she was like, yo, my friend is about to do her directorial debut. She needs a great assistant. I was like, cool, who is it? Her name was Ava DuVernay. You're gonna go be her
Casual.
PA. And that's really how it happened. They really were sort of like guiding me along. And I'm really grateful to like, sort of pick up where they left off.
Guys, there are so many gems in that. Like, be the person that your boss can recommend to your next job, right? Like,
basically, be overly eager, run.
Like dogs.
I was always like the most excited person there. And I think that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is what's so exciting. Like when I go to a set, I feel like I was a PA even when I go into my own thing, you know? Yeah. It's like, it's exciting we get to do what we do and to tell stories and to have a good time.
So speaking of shooting your shot, we gotta talk about how you got yourself involved in Boomerang. Because there's an interesting story behind that, because that project was actually already in development. You heard about it and then you chased after it. So tell us about that story, the backstory.
Boomerang is such an iconic movie that is a gift that continues to give. If we should all be so blessed to have projects like Boomerang.
It was so ahead of his time.
The fact that Boomerang ended up feeding me and all those other amazing people. Dime Davis, who directed the pilot of Boomerang, went on to become the first black woman to be nominated for an Emmy for directing Black Ladies Catch Comedy Show. I just want to be clear of like how much like it's just, but yeah. So anyway, I heard they were doing a Boomerang in the series. Halle Berry was presenting me with an award at GLAAD, and it was like, again, another amazing moment. Just like the fact that we can be friends and we be talking. I'm like, this is crazy. But when I went backstage, and I was like, Halle, do you know they turned Boomerang into a series? Classic Halle, no. I was like, okay, well, if they do it, like, you should be involved, and like, I would try to like put it up. Like, would that be cool? She was like, call me, let's talk about it. So I did. I called her. We talked about it.
So then you got Halle Berry's phone number. Okay.
Elaine, I love that. That's what you take it for. You're like, so y'all be texting? No. So we talked, and she was really great. She was just sort of like, how do we make the series what for people now what we did for black people in the 90s? And I was like, that's so, like, yeah, that's great. I was like, we need to show, like, where we're going and where we are. And so it really just, and also Boomerang continues to be talked about, like Robin Givens' role as Jacqueline, like as sort of a modern woman, giving Eddie Murphy as good as he was given. Anyway, Halle was like, I trust you to do it. Let's do something cool. And we did that. And a child was born out of it. The two lead actors, Taquan Richardson and Tatana, ended up having a child together. So that's our Boomerang baby. They played love interest on screen and ended up having a kid. So we always say, this show was meant.
All because you got Halle Berry's phone number. And then a beautiful
I'm
baby
happy
was
this
born.
child exists in the world now. And that to me is like the greatest gift. A person, a black person.
Born unto Lena Waithe and Halle Berry. We're not going
I'm
to start no
telling you,
rumors today. We're not starting no rumors today.
Casting is very important. Casting is very important. Because I ain't going to lie, when we brought them in for the chemistry read, we're like, this is great.
There's real chemistry here.
I buy them. But,
okay,
yes.
so I want to get a little bit into your business personally.
Oh shit! Hold on.
So you're obviously, you are not that kind of business.
Okay. Good.
Don't worry. But you're obviously a multi-hyphenate success story, but you're also someone, like many of us, that have multi-hyphenate intersectional identities. Mm-hmm. And so I'm interested to hear you speak from the perspective of a black queer woman leader, young leader in Hollywood, about some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome and in what ways your sense of identity really has helped you persevere.
Well, it's interesting because I don't think of myself as a leader in that sense. I think of myself as an artist who is surrounded by other really great artists doing really innovative and interesting work. But to me, the greatest example of, say, a hurdle, because people do often ask, like, what are the hurdles? What do we face? And the thing is, like, 20s was such a hard thing to get made. Because I wrote it, it's funny because I just saw Kenya Bear. Y'all just saw Kenya. I got to see Kenya backstage. I've known Kenya forever. I knew Kenya when he was writing on The Game. And then I was a writer's assistant.
Mara, yeah.
Mara Brockett Hill, yeah, another Mara Brockett Hill show. And so I was searching for something because Kenya sent me an email and I couldn't find it. And so I was like trying to, you search in your email. And an old email came up from 2014 that said, it was so crazy. It was like, damn, I just read 20s and it's fucking good. Kenya, because I would always see Kenya stuff. And that was in 2014. And you ain't see 20s till what, 2020? And so, because people in LA, when I wrote that pilot, they really loved that script. But people were like, this is insane. This is not gonna get on TV. Just because at that time, it didn't make sense. They're like, what, some gay girl trying to be a television writer and hanging around, bouncing around? I was like, yeah, Like, that's my, yeah, what's wrong?
By
Like,
the way, and then Girls was made.
well,
In between that time, I'm just saying.
look, I mean, but that also was a thing for me, to see a person who shared my name, who was writing about like their life and on HBO, and I was like, yeah, but that is also what it means to be a black person in America. So you're like, okay, got it. But I wasn't bitter about it. It felt a little bit like, oh, this is possible. Like, I can tell my name, Lena. I got a story. It was so that I was like, okay, cool. And it took
I
a
love
while,
that.
like that. But so meaning, if you're a person that is easy to say no to, you must be the most persistent, patient person in the room.
Woo! Did you guys hear that?
Because that's what I've learned is to, and I don't want to say like, oh, never give up in some cliche way, but it's more about, because I know when to give things up. That is also a gift.
When to give things up. Yeah. When do you know when to give a dream up?
It's a weird thing. I can feel it for myself where I'm like, okay, I can put that down, or this isn't the time, or this isn't right. But some things, I'm just like, nah, this is right. We just gotta wait it out. We gotta wait for people to catch up.
It's a gut thing. It's a gut thing.
Yeah. Because 20s, I was never gonna let it go. If it wasn't on TV, I would be up here right now like, well, I'm still trying to do this thing. I would still be there. Because I just know.
When I first met you, we went to dinner in like 2012,
oh my God.
2013, or
yes.
I can't remember, 2015 maybe, and you were talking about 20s.
Hell yeah, I was talking about 20s everywhere I went.
And the passion that you had, what I love about you is you're like the perfect example of when preparation meets opportunity. Because you've been doing this. And you've been doing it for everyone. And while you were working for other people, you were writing your own stories. You were getting those scripts ready.
Oh yeah.
So when that Emmy came and you got all the eyeballs and all the accolades and the doors were opening for you, you were ready to run through them. And I think that's what, to me, I think that's what's so inspiring about you. I think a lot of people wait for the spotlight before they get to work.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't chasing it. I think I never dreamed about, that's the weird thing, even though that moment with Halle Berry was very emotional for me, I never thought about, oh, what would that be like if I won an award for doing something? I just wanted to be a really good television writer. So I wasn't chasing, I wasn't trying to get to the, oh, let me get this flag. So instead, I was just running. That's it. I was just running. And that was like a cool thing that somebody handed to me as I was running. Because it wasn't like this plan, but it was funny because the people were like, so what are you gonna do now? And I was like, what am I gonna do now? I was like,
I'm just getting started.
Yeah, I was like, I wanna go make Queen of Slim. Like, I don't know, like, I wanna keep doing what I'm doing. I wanna do things that I haven't done. You know, because that's the thing, is like with each offering, it's a time capsule of where I was then as an artist. So that's what even like hearing feedback is always cool from my audience and what they think of things. And it's sort of like, yep, I hear that, but I'm also in a new space now. I'm a different artist at this point. So people may be commenting on who I was then, because I'm not there anymore, and now I'm here focusing on this thing.
Well, I think it's definitely your passion for the craft and your perseverance and the fact that you're still the most excited person in the room that's going to make you so excited all the time, always talking about this, always talking about the work. I feel like that is what is going to make you one of the most prolific to ever do it. And I just want to give you your flowers. Right here on this stage. We're running out of time. They're back there like, wrap it up. But they have some rapid fire questions. Should we get into those?
Oh, it's like quick time with slime.
All right, so, well, I want to ask you one more juicy question first, one more deep question, and then we can get to the rapid fire. So I mentioned, so legacy is something that I hear you talk about more than anyone I know that's our age. I appreciate that about you. So I want to know from your perspective, I mean, you've made a lot of work, you have a lot more work in you. To date, what do you think is the most important piece of work that you've created? And where do you see yourself artistically in 10 years?
God damn, what?
I had to
don't
go
know.
over on you for a second.
That's insane. I don't know if I can, you know what? I don't, all of the work are fragments of myself. So there's no part of me that is more important than the other. It's all pieces of me. So I feel like the Thanksgiving episode is very a lot of me in that, but you know, the Shy is very, like 20s is like Queen and Slim. These are all things that are pieces of myself that I can look at and see myself. But I also don't, it's funny, I don't really look back at the work a ton. I don't. But for me, when people say they revisit the work, or when they go back to it, that's to me the sign of something special. Yeah. Because I go back to things all the time. And that is what means something to me. Because if I want to continue to go back and look at it, and we all have those movies, like Love Jones. Like you can watch What's Love Got to Do with It any day of the week. You can watch like I can watch Boys in the Hood right now. Right now. I can watch Set It Off right now.
Loving basketball.
Loving basketball. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I think that Boomerang, House Party, those are people that you look to and go, shit, I still want to go back and look at it. It's not forgotten. And so, anyway, that's the thing. My hope is that people continue to revisit the work. And then 10 years from now, artistically, I want to not repeat myself. That's the biggest thing. I want to continue to evolve and grow and be different, but not trying to be something I'm not, but to make sure the work is a reflection of who I am in that moment, whether people like it or not. Because I can't, the mission, and that's a big thing, I don't want to do work to get people to applaud. If I want applause, the work will be forgettable. I want someone to kind of go, okay, that sticks. That's it. I just want it to stick to your ribs. I don't want it to art isn't always meant to be comfort. The work that Eve's Bayou still haunts me to this day. Love Jones fucks me up to this day. Boys in the Hood fucks me up in a way. Menace to Society fucks me up in a way. You know what I mean? I fuck with Baby Boy hard too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's certain things I'm sort of like, oh man, that really lingers. That makes me think of something in a different way. Yeah.
I love the cultural references. Y'all are getting a whole cultural education right now, okay? I see this journalist here, and seeing her face is reminding me that on the step and repeat, she asked me a question that I said, you know what? Let me redirect that question to Lena, and it's about building generational wealth.
Oh,
I know I said that was my last, hardcore question, but I do feel this is an important note to end on for this particular group, because you are creating a platform and a community that is about building generational wealth as creators, and that's not something that we have a lot of reference points for in our community. So talk about the importance of and the path to making sure that you are owning your work and the value of it, and that you are creating wealth, not just for yourself, but for your community. Like, talk about the money part.
Well, I mean, the truth is, I'll talk about because wealth was also something I wasn't chasing. That's the truth. And so it's something I didn't understand. It's also something that wasn't really talked about in my household. We come from a working class family, is what I came from, which I think some of y'all know what that means. So my mom made sure she had enough to get all the stuff paid and enough to have some food in the fridge, and that was sort of the mentality that we lived by. And so I just didn't really understand it, but I also wasn't trying to be like, oh, if I can just get this amount of money, everybody will be safe and cool. So the first step was to admit that I don't know shit about money. I don't know nothing about generating wealth because it wasn't like the top priority for me. Again, the focus was I was being a nerd. Like, I want to be really good at television writing. Let me just like watch marathons of things and like try to write scripts. And then, you know, getting into the guild and paying dues and understand taxes and like being like, what is it like when you get an LLC? All that shit. I was like asking questions because, and that was a big thing. But also too, there's a thing in our industry. It's still amongst us. Sometimes it's still uncomfortable to talk about money. So people don't want to give you tea, you know, but you just know black folks are frugal. So that's all I knew about my bosses because Mara, Gina, Ava, Yvette, they are frugal black women. So that was a big thing of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be frugal. So that was all I was learning. And so, but then as I expanded and we all continue to expand and Issa as well, like we were like, okay, and Kenya was like, oh, we gotta like learn what? Can we get accountants? Like talk about this? And so it's something that I'll be honest about. I'm not an expert on it. I'm still learning, and I'm definitely not afraid to ask these rich white guys, like, what are you doing? And also, and like that saying to them, it's like, if you want to be an ally, tell us what the secrets are. Like, why are you doing this? And like, what's this? Because I don't know. I don't come from that. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not my family. Like, so I also am not embarrassed to say that, and I'm not afraid to like ask a question and be like, I don't know that. So let me understand. And that's really sort of the journey I've been on, trying to educate myself, read about it, understand it, because and also the business is still set up for us to lose. It's like the music industry sucks, but the show business is also not built for us to own our shit. I always tell people selling a show is a celebration. Like, oh yeah, I sold a show. But you're also saying, I sold my IP to a bigger corporation that now owns it, and now they're my boss. Like, that's what it is. Like, I had an idea for a show. Showtime and Fox Disney technically own that show. So it's like, I'm over here, like, technically working for somebody else that owns my thing. So that's also, I don't want to trip anybody up either. The business is still needs to evolve. We don't even get residuals for streaming yet. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I got all the answers.
Right.
But I'm not afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
We shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. And we also shouldn't think that the business is fixed. It's not. We got more representation, but we still need to recalibrate how this thing works so we actually can own shit and get paid for our own IP.
That part.
If that makes sense.
It does.
That does.
I so appreciate
just keeping the buck.
The honesty of that answer. And that is why we love you, isn't it, y'all? They're about to kick us off this stage. So can everybody, for those who are not here, we're going to do a little video, give them a little FOMO. On the count of three, just show Lena some love. All right, 1, 2, 3. Let's go, Culture Con.